Oh, so I bought Rabbids, but I have not actually launched it yet. So
Yeah. You have a lot of
because I've
competing
had,
interests in your time lately.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know how long the other thing is going, so I'm trying to get time in with that while I can. So that'll probably be a weekend thing. But the other thing is, it is quite good.
All right. Change the title. I'll do some pings, some ping pongs.
Yay, pings.
Ugh. What's up, Lepton? Let's see. I have to do my. I'm going to do my coin conceits first because I never remember at the end of an episode when my mind is mush.
Okay.
I'm not going to say them out loud. I'm just going to write them.
Oh yeah, I should do that too. Oh, there it is. Okay. Where do I see the thing? Oh, here we go. Okay.
Do you have Kayla's? I'm going to get Kayla's.
No, you can go ahead and I have a list. So
Mm.
did I close the dock? I must have closed the dock.
I will read the ingredients when we get
Stream can hear us, by the way. Say hi to Stream.
No.
upstream.
Right now it is Lepton. Hi, Lepton. Oh yeah, I'm on Blizzard too. I gotta write that down. I've done a lot of stuff
Fun.
this week.
Yeah, you've been busy.
I think
I spelled that wrong.
I'm doing 6 podcasts this week.
Oh,
That's
only
a
6?
lot.
It's a lot.
That's like just, it's like a normal Thursday for you, isn't it?
No, not 6 today. Only 2,
Oh,
3
okay.
today. It. Don't make me reflect on my choices.
What am I supposed to do if I don't do that, though?
Enable me.
Well, but that's not what I'm here for. That's not my job.
No, but just
That's
look
that's
the
Twitter.
other
That's
way.
Twitter's job. Twitter's the enabler.
They are not the enabler. They encourage. That's it. They are far worse.
Oh, once I am no longer death, I will figure out a way to start streaming again.
I was wondering if you
I
were
mean, you're
streaming
you're
and I
death
couldn't.
and you're on like different hours, with a demanding
It was
job. So
it
that's
was
like a
the
lot.
combination. I would have been more inclined to figure something out if speaking did not make me cough
Yeah.
more.
Why
Yeah, I
are
mean,
you on the
it's
show
yeah.
today?
Hmm? We'll be fine. We've been.
Yeah, you sound great.
I got real good at muting my mic casting this last weekend.
You sound like you have had your head in an ice bucket for days. Why are you on the show? You just said that talking hurts.
No, it doesn't hurt. It just then later I cough.
Well, see, if she's doing a podcast, then she has breaks to cough when we're talking.
Exactly.
Whereas, if she's
Yeah.
streaming, then she's just talking the whole time.
I only
None
talk
of
like
these-
a quarter of the show.
None of these reassurances have made me feel any better.
I see.
let me get my tea.
I am enabling.
It's- I'm offering an exit door, like like an escape hatch. I'm offering one right now.
mean-
Like, this is such a light week, we could easily do a 2-host thing.
I mean, clearly Edel is, wants to be here, so
Yeah,
she's gonna be here.
Yeah, but also
know?
like wanting to be here might be dumb.
I mean, yes, but we all do dumb things, and
I told you not to make me reflect on my own decisions. I told you not to do that. We talked about that.
Listen, I'm just saying what we're all thinking. That's all. I gotta move my chair up a little bit. Ugh. That's better. Now I don't feel like I'm in a hole.
I've got it. To preserve show length on this light week, I'll just do text to speech.
You can also like close Discord and sleep if you want to do that.
I can't.
Listen, Hat, we know what's gonna happen if she logs off. She's just gonna go murder Mongols in Tsushima.
I've actually been trying to get some Hearthstone in, so I can maybe qualify.
Yeah, you have. You have gotten some Hearthstone in, haven't you? Just a touch? Just a touch of Hearthstone?
Just a little. Yeah. Practicing.
I lost right
think I've
before
settled
stream
on-
to someone on this
think I've-
stream.
Settled
Oh.
on one sprint and Edwin rather than 2 sprints, no Edwin, or
Oh,
just
that deck.
Edwin.
I lost to a touch of the Nathersum, Steve. You'll notice that she's not describing
Yeah.
Warlock cards.
Yeah, it's
I
fine.
mean, yeah. You don't need to play Warlock to play Warlock cards. I mean, that's well known at this point.
Oh, I know it. And that's the tooth.
Yep. I'm sure we'll get to that.
All right. Well, since you were insisting on being on here, then we will do the show.
So is that it? It's partially about Edel's health and partially that you're pissed off about losing on ladder.
I lose on ladder enough to not be pissed about it at this point. I added in her coin concede 2 touch of the Nathrism already, so we're all set there. But I am mostly concerned about Edel's both current and future health of the pain of talking now and the deferred consequences later.
Got a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I do think been getting better with the fire cider.
So-
So yeah.
It sounds very much like something I'd want to put in my body. Certainly things with fire in them.
we'll get to that.
We have a lot of things we're going to get to today. Thank you, Mr. Bungalow, for the sub.
Oh, Maureen has informed me that they are opening a new New York style deli in Worcester next week.
Hmm.
So I am very excited about that.
Sure. Not Worcester, Ohio.
No, Worcester, Mass. The quote unquote other city in Massachusetts. I mean, I guess technically
Mhm.
Springfield's a city too, but yeah.
Mm.
We have an airport too. We only have like 1 flight a day out of it, but But Worcester is slightly closer to me than Ryan's Deli. So
It is much closer
hopefully this
to
place
you
is good.
and
But
much further
yes.
from me.
Cleveland has
Sup,
all the
Candice?
same things as a big city does. It just only has one of them.
Yeah, same with Worcester.
It's like
Well, I mean, Cleveland at least has like major league sports teams, whereas Worcester has the Worcester Sharks. Is it the Sharks? No, it's the Railers now. I should
You
know
know,
that.
that sounds like a good time.
Well, the kids actually like they had the elementary school like band play it.
Do
play
they
at
do
the
Shark
Hucks.
Week? Is that
Well, not anymore because they're not the Sharks anymore. Now they're the Railers. But
Wow.
they might have done Shark Week back when they were the
So
Sharks.
do they fire off rail guns instead of t-shirt guns?
Well, they're trains. They might fire off trains.
Oh, that's boring. Man.
Worcester does not have a lot going for it. I'm telling you.
It really does not.
Look, my senior year of high school, my physics teacher was so annoyed at those of us that didn't go on senior project. He had us do a physics project instead, and I studied and made miniature versions of a railgun and a Gauss rifle.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a very Edelweiss story.
And when I say miniature
Yes.
versions, I mean like very low powered, like aluminum foil, kind of like, strong magnets,
Yeah.
but like.
All right. I'm ready if you all are.
Yeah, I'm all set. I should probably retweet. Oh yeah, you tweeted that we're live, like an hour
Tweeted,
ago.
pinged, all that stuff.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Yep. I have Audacity open and everything. So.
All right. Seems good. I'm gonna record.
Okay.
Recording.
I'm recording.
We're recording.
All right. Do I have this open? I do. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 366 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, October 20th in the evening from Gadsden, New York. It's me, Ridiculous At. From Nomorgana, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Hello.
Hello. And from Northern Massachusetts, we have Wickgood.
Hi.
Hello. And from where you are, listener, we have you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being here. We also have a couple new patrons, Ewaljar and Mickey66. So thank you both so much for supporting the show. Thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you to all of our listeners. You're all great. Everyone who left us reviews really help other people find the show. So, Life and Ladder. Steve, you got something written down. Tell us about it.
Well, so I usually do this at the beginning of at the beginning of October, but I realized that I hadn't started it yet. But since October is ADHD Awareness Month and also coincides with when Extra Life is doing their big fundraising push, I started raising money for Boston Children's Hospital on my stream this week. And it's a cause that's really close to my heart because, I've got 3 kids that are, 2 of them have ADHD, 2 of them have autism. You do the math, how that works. And we spent a lot of time in the neurology department at Boston Children's, and they have been nothing but amazing through all of it, especially like fighting with insurance companies over medicine, and you're working with the school on, IEPs and other accommodations and stuff like that. And so I like to try to give back when I can. So I started that on the stream on Monday. We've already raised over $400, which is pretty fantastic. But I have a goal of so last year we were able to raise $675. So if we get there again, I am going to put up a poll for one of the decks that I have complained about the most on stream, and I will play that for an hour of the next stream. If we get to $1,500, which is well beyond where I did last year, I am handing all my deck selections over to Sidisi for the stream. So Sidisi, being my, polar opposite, will likely pick decks that require me to go face, which I'm sure everybody will love. And I can't even remember the last time I played Hunter at all on stream. So if you want to see that particular brand of torture, that is something that you can help make happen. But I'm really grateful that we've even raised this much already. It was very quick, and it's a good cause, like Boston Children's, and it's been in the news lately for things that we won't talk about. But but they're just amazing there, and they deserve all the help that they can get. But as far as like in Hearthstone, I've mostly been staying on the no bad deck diet. I was very good up until about 2/3 through my stream on Monday when Theo posted a Quest Priest. And so I decided to have a cheat day. But the deck is still fine. It's a little... It's cutting down on the 6s, so you have a little bit of vulnerability of... Because now the Theotar's a 5, now it ends up messing up like the symmetry of how all the cards are organized in the curve, because you have like more 5s because you can't really cut a Clean the Scene or a Spirit Guide, so it just cuts a Light Bomb, because Light Bomb was one of the cards that you kind of didn't want to have anymore since Miracle Rogue was less of a thing, though now that it's coming back, maybe you want that again, who knows. But it's still fine. I mean, I had a game against a Paladin the other night where I stole their Jailer early before they were able to play it. And I was sitting there like, okay, I can do the thing now that everybody says that I could be doing, which is play the Jailer the turn before I play the quest reward, and then immediately draw the quest reward. Of course, that was also the game when all 3 of my 6-cost cards were in the bottom 5 cards of my deck. So it didn't actually matter. And then they ended up killing me with a 35 damage Denathrius before I was able to finish the quest anyway. So that was kind of sad, but the deck's fine. I also did play a few games with that Control Paladin after the Vicious Syndicate report came out. I don't know what it is that I just refuse to play with the Jailer because I just think it's dumb. But the list that Vicious Syndicate posted with Denathrius at the top end instead of the Jailer, and also running Mr. Smite, seems like it was a little bit more palatable to me. And I did play a game right before the stream where I ran into a Blessed Priest, and that experience is it's a lot of fun waiting for them to spend all 75 seconds making like a 15-30 Radiant Elemental and then just playing Righteous Defense on it and having them concede. So that was a little bit more entertaining. But yeah, this week has just been like brutal for game releases, with Marvel Snap also coming out, and I've bought Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, but I haven't actually launched it yet because I haven't had time, and I'm still working my way through Tsushima. I'm like into Act 3 now, so like it's just like so much going on. But I guess it's kind of good because like the Hearthstone's kind of in a lull state anyway, so it's been good to be able to branch out and spend time playing some other things for a little while until we get whatever the fun thing is with the next patch, whenever that comes out.
Yeah, the media overload feels really legit lately. Like, I definitely feel pulled in a bunch of different directions, and definitely limited more by time than by anything else.
Yeah.
Edel, how about you? You go in the middle so you have a chance to rest your voice before and after.
So I am still sick. It remains not COVID, so I've got a doctor's appointment coming up. Hopefully it will be something that they can just like prescribe me something and it will solve the issue. In the meantime, I have been feeling slightly better since I've been taking a product that has previously kicked certain illnesses for me. I think the last time I had this stuff was when I worked at the co-op in Philadelphia. It's called Fire Cider. Ingredients: apple cider vinegar, honey, oranges, lemons, onions, ginger, horseradish, garlic, turmeric, habanero pepper, black pepper, and something else. Certified. It just says certified organic ingredient, which is vague. But anyway, yeah, it's a lot. It's spicy. I do 15 milliliters, and it does clear the sinuses somewhat.
This sounds like something I would ask one of my kids to drink if I thought they were faking being sick to get out of going to school. Like, if you're willing to drink this, you can stay home. Like, that sounds like what that is.
That's good. I might keep that for future videos. It Whether it's placebo or not, it has worked for me before. I've only been doing a few days, so I can't say whether it's been like making a big difference or not yet. But I just always want to be doing something new to help and maybe try and kick it. But I'm trying not to take NyQuil too much because I don't want to like end up in a reliant situation where I need it to sleep, and I'm nervous about that kind of stuff. And yeah, it sucks. Like sometimes I'll be singing to my nephew to put him to sleep for a nap, and then I just start coughing, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just like play something off Spotify because I can't actually sing right now. But that's been going well. I'll try and like boot up streams again once I do not feel like death. Then I feel I'll have reached a sort of balance of not being sick and will have figured out kind of a routine of my new schedule. That is, of course, by the time I'm not sick, maybe it'll be November anyway, and that's like my time month off. So we'll see how it goes. I beat Ghost of Tsushima. Still need to do the DLC, but very fun. I had a really nice challenge doing the final sequence on Lethal. It was great. Really felt like I had to pull out all the stops, and I opted for the lighter
Red or white?
and
Red or
ending.
white? Red.
Red is the good one.
I mean, good is good. Listen, it is a choice, but afterwards there's a costume change. It's either a red costume or a white costume.
Oh, okay. Red costume. Yeah.
There we go. Same.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. I'll probably just bring up a
Stop.
YouTube video of the other, but
Steve hasn't finished it. Don't spoil it.
yeah, that's why I'm not.
But now I know there's an ending.
There's a
It's
choice.
true. There's a choice and an ending.
Yes.
The game has choices and
Yeah.
endings, decisions and consequences, much like real life.
So yeah, excellent game. I'll probably be able to finish up the DLC relatively quickly, and then if I'm still feeling need for a game besides Hearthstone, then I might pick up Dark Souls 3 again, since my brother and our other friend who plays a lot of Souls games are going through that now. So
Well, if you have PlayStation Plus, Demon Souls Remastered is part of it. Oh, okay. Might be worth it for a month just to do that.
yeah, maybe.
Well, the DLC is pretty extensive, surprisingly so. There's a bunch to it. But yeah, this is a weird time for Hearthstone, because we're very clearly waiting for something, but we don't know what it is or when it's coming. And the meta's not bad, quite the opposite. I think the meta is very well balanced right now with a wide range of options, with the exception of if you really like to kill from hand, you got to work way harder for that right now. Shark Rogue does appear to be a thing. It does appear that Shark Rogue is a thing. The latest VS report, just to give a brief summary, says that Theatar is actively worse now. Obviously adding a mana matters, but you see a lot of people taking screenshots saying Theatar doesn't matter because two people playing slow decks like a Denathrius swapped hands. Like, yeah, that's going to happen if you're playing a slow Denathrius deck. But if you want to win by turn 9, there are a lot of options. It's just that after turn 9, it's Denathrius time. That's really what you're doing to finish games in this meta. And there are a couple other support cards. Like, yes, you could do Paladin with the Jailer and Cariel, but you're just doing Cariel and then a bunch of stuff. You know, that's not... I'm not going to give any credit to the Jailer there, because that's not what's going on. It's ordering the court to make sure you hit Cariel on time. That's what's going on. That's what that is.
I did come up with... I mean, not that much has changed, but I brought out Quest Hunter again. And I managed to go 70% with a list that I came up with.
30 cards or 40 cards?
40.
Okay.
You need to 40 in this meta.
You need the life.
I didn't know how sick you were. So, you know,
It's-
that's...
You really want the Curses and Curse Warlock to benefit you, and if you're dead, then they don't.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
And that is the main reason to do it. Is Curse Warlock. But besides that, can still get there. I am running. I ended up doing 1 copy of Viper. There's enough people, I think, messing around with Paladin that you have to be able to pop Cariel or have Tavish, or potentially both. And so that lets me at least, you know, have a good shot against them without committing the double Viper. And it was pretty decent. Honestly, Motion Denied was the reason I was interested in trying this.
It's a lot of
I
damage.
don't think it's worth running 2 of them, because the issue you can end up in is, right, they figure it out and now they're just not proccing the secret. Well, you still have Furious Howl in the deck, so like you don't want to have too many things that you're just unable to play because you've already got one in play. But it is a nice additional secret that deals damage, and can trip people up sometimes. Like it both is a lot of damage for the cost, can give you a quest tick, and just gives you that little bit extra of like them having to figure things out and making Spring the Trap more worthwhile.
It's a lot better when it does 9 than when it does 6, though.
Well, yes.
That reminds me, if we're talking about quest decks, I ran up. I was playing some mage this afternoon because the VS report had just come out, and they were saying Naga Priest was the best deck to play. So I figured I'd just play what would counter it. And I ran into an honest to goodness quest warlock, like apparently running the Jailer, though I never saw it. But like they had double bloodbound imp, like on 2 and 3. And just kept, and they finished the quest because, you know, it took me a little while to clear them. Though I also ended up, you know, playing Salat Adelbai twice with Savara in my hand. So that didn't end well for them. But yeah, I mean, it's been kind of silly season on ladder. You can definitely tell that people are starting to get like, either they're getting bolder with experimenting, or they're just getting bored with the decks that are out there and just trying to try stuff, because we're just kind of in that phase of the meta right now.
Yeah, it's... When I look at this meta, I see the promise of board-based gameplay being delivered upon. I see a lot of different choices and options, like for Naga Priest to be as good as it is, and also to be as underplayed as it is, I think is probably a good sign. Because really, like, the deck is kind of bananas in terms of just the sheer number of things you can do and stats you can create. But for some reason, people just don't play it, so they don't have to nerf it. And I don't know if it needs nerfing, but I do know the amount of numbers you can make is pretty wacky. But we have the promised land of board-based gameplay. I think every class has more than one thing to do, with the exception of Warrior, which does have one thing to do, which is the thing that I've been doing, which is Enrage Warrior. I am climbing in top 200 with it. Like, not rapidly climbing, but I played 3 games right before the podcast today. It was against Donkey, Edelweiss, and Jay Alex. I won 2 of those, and I lost to Edelweiss. So clearly she is the best of those 3. But
I also played Donkey, who was the
Yep.
rogue mirror, though.
well, he was on in Rage Warrior. But yeah, like, and Warrior, like, Charge Warrior technically exists, but you shouldn't play it, probably. You probably shouldn't play it. But every other class, I think, has more than one deck to play right now. Like, Hunter is actually a little sketchy that you could play Face, but nobody is, and you could play Quest, but thankfully nobody is, except for you. But Demon Hunter has a couple options. Druid, you can go multiple different ways. Mage, you have a bunch of different choices. Paladin is mostly the control variants, but, like, people are trying Pure and Pure Dude and whatever. Priest is Bless, Quest, Naga. Rogue has, like...
Thief.
Rogue is a giant mess. Like, Rogue right now looks like the class with the worst best deck, so to speak. Like, I tried to find this phrase in Angry Chicken yesterday. It has the lowest peak performance of any deck. Like, the best thing to do in Rogue is still probably the worst of the 10 classes. But there's explorations there in Mine Rogue and Shark Rogue and Thief Rogue and Big Thief Rogue and Secret Rogue.
Vandar Secret Rogue.
Vandar
yeah.
Secret Rogue, Secret Renathal, Thief Rogue. Like, it's just a adjective soup of what you can do over there. Or I guess that's noun soup. I don't know. I'll figure out. I haven't done Mad Libs in a while. Shaman is mostly control, but you can Murloc.
You could totem theoretically, I guess.
I guess
but
Warlock is mostly
nobody
just like which variety of imps do you want to do, unless you were Steve's opponent and you want to do Quest Warlock.
Well, there's Kibler's like Reno Quest.
No, there isn't.
Warlock.
No, there is not. that is a pile of cards a specific streamer played one time. That is not a thing.
It's the closest thing to a commander deck we have at Hearthstone, I think.
Exactly. So, like, there are options if you're like, the gameplay is really dynamic and interesting, but it's month 3. It's the second half of month 3. We're waiting for something. So some people are a little bored. The expansion, like the first balance patch, was bad. They fixed it, and then the last balance patch, this one was also good. But the Edwin buff patch was bad. The end game board states, if you like playing to turn 10 or later, are just Denathrius battles. But if it's before turn 10, it's really cool. So I don't know. I think it is a good format, and I am looking forward to what the next one is. But I've been playing a good bit. And Rage Warrior has been my main squeeze, doing pretty well with it. But there are other options I've been exploring. If I really wanted to like climb into top 100, I would probably play more Naga Priest. But I think in Rage Warrior is totally fine, and people keep disrespecting it, so I keep smashing them in the face. It's good.
Yeah. And if
Wuling,
people are playing a lot of Paladin in top 100, which it sounds like they're starting to, then Naga Priest is not a fun time.
It's okay. Like, I think that you can navigate that matchup, but yeah, it's not what you want to do. It's something you can do, but it's not what you want to do. And Wuling is trying an Enraged list where he cuts Crooked Cook and Crazed Wretch, along with the one Acolyte for 2 Harbor Scamps, 2 Stormwind Freebooters, which is the 3/4 that does +2 attack, and then Okani. Okani's actually been great for me, like really, really good. But the pirates are okay. They're all right. Like, sometimes you scamp into a freebooter on 2 and 3, and it's like, all right. Sometimes it's later in the game, you do scamp into freebooter or something. It's like, okay. But, Crooked Cook was either like you ran away with the game, or it just was a 2-mana 1/4. Crazed Wretch I do miss a little bit. But Crooked Cook is like, I only miss it in the games that I think I was going to win anyway. I know. Hard to say, but the other 25 cards are still pretty good.
You could make a quest in Rage Warrior,
Nope. I have started not keeping the location because I want a proactive 1 or a proactive coin 2 and a 2. I want to use all my mana for stuff that attacks in the first 3 turns. So I will no longer keep the location. I will tempo out a Beaming Sidekick on 1 if I'm going first, but I would rather mulligan for Trog, Dredger Staff, Envoy, whatever. But if I have the coin, I will do like Coin Extractor into Tol'Vir into Imbued Axe, one of my favorite openers. There are a lot of different ways to open with that deck, but you just want to commit as much as possible, the highest percentage possible of your early mana to do stuff that attacks. So I don't even keep location anymore unless my hand is already very good. So, that's something to be aware of. But yeah, I don't know. Also, like, yes, like everyone else in the world, I'm playing Snap. I've been doing so for 5 months. It's been fun to talk to everyone about it. But, like, I'm already pretty deep in it anyways, so it is not new and exciting for me, but the exciting part is that everyone else is in on it now, so it's kind of fun to do that. My wife is playing it now. She likes it. You know, fun game.
It's good for bathroom breaks. You know, it's good for, like, I didn't download the Steam client because it's like I'm never playing that on my PC. But it's basically if you want to stream it, I guess, then, you know, I mean, which people are doing, then it's better for that rather than having to do some janky setup with, you know, hooking your phone up to Twitch or whatever. But yeah, it's fun for, like, you know, it's fun for, like, you know, short bursts where I don't really want to get involved in, you know, a game of TFT or you know, even like games of Hearthstone right now are not that fast. It kind of feels like when I started picking up Eternal because I kept disconnecting on the train station every time I tried to play a game on the way home from work.
Yeah, I mean, that was
So-
during the Rise of Shadows meta, and it was 25 minutes a game. Like, we're not quite
Yeah.
there yet, at least not with the decks
We're
that
not
I'm
there.
playing. But we're batting around the idea of a Snap bonus episode. It's something that might materialize, but short version is probably try the game out on mobile. It is a mobile-first game that is a complement and also an intention. If you play it on PC, you'll be like, this seems not finished. That's because it isn't. It is early access, and it says so on the Steam page. They put it out so people could stream it on day one because they realized there was a demand there. But
Yeah.
it is like, it's a fun game, mobile first. There is some depth to it, but at first it will seem like there isn't because of how their card progression works. But if you do your dailies every day, it'll take you probably like 20 to 30 minutes a day total, and you'll get the cards. It'll take a little while, but, you know, that's my brief recommendation sales pitch. I've played it every day for 5 months because I take the train. If I didn't take the train, I work from home, it would probably be harder to fit not harder to fit into the schedule because the games are fast, harder to care, but it is a good game.
Yeah, I mean, when I first downloaded it, it kind of felt like, why am I doing competitive edition? But it, you know, it grew on me. There's some depth there, but yeah, it's more snacky.
Yeah,
It's more like, it's fun size.
streamlined.
Yeah.
It is about as distilled as a card game experience can be. But this is not a Snap podcast, and I've still been playing a whole bunch of Hearthstone. And no, I'm not starting a Snap podcast. I did guest on a couple, but I am not starting a Snap podcast, and I am not leaving Hearthstone anytime soon. So don't worry about that. We should get to the brief news section we have today. Keep in mind, this is a lighter news week, and we already kind of dissected the rumors we had last week, and they're just rumors with no confirmation of anything. So this week is going to be lighter, easier, Dexplanations and mailbag because we weren't sure what to talk about, so we asked you, and you gave us some things to talk about. But let's jump into the news that we have.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
So, this week, there's a new bundle in the shop. It is 2,000 runestones. You get 10 class packs and 2 portraits. Portraits are cool. I don't want the class packs, so I didn't buy it. But, yeah, Marshmallow Maiev and Apple Arana. Like, Maiev is roasting a marshmallow. That's great.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't a bundle, but, you know.
Same.
I use, like, I'm fortunate enough to have some more direct channels, and I shared some direct feedback with the team that it is hard for me to be nice to runestones when they're not being marketed as a way to break up these purchases and let me buy what I want. And that also, we are probably overdue to go through the collection and mark some portraits available for crafting in gold and some card backs available to crafting in gold because they've been out of standard for a while, and I don't know what the timeline is for making those craftable, but it feels like they did one pass one time, and now some are just lost, and I was supposed to be able to craft them, and I can't. But also, if you make them 200 runestones or whatever in that screen, you turn the collection into a second shop, and you get more of my money without trying. So I asked them to please just let me buy what I want from your game, how I want to do it, make it easier for me. It's, what is it that Gabe Newell always said about Steam? Piracy isn't a sales problem, it's a service problem. Make it easier for me to give you money and I'll do it. Make it harder and I won't. So I gave them some very dedicated very direct feedback on what I'm looking for of a la carte makes Runestone so much more palatable.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just also been a lot lately, and it's a little bit easier to let some of those things go when they're in a bundle like that. Like, you know, it's just like, well, I've already got portraits that I want to run for pretty much all the classes. So, like, if it's not like, you know, jumping out at me, then I'm, you know, like the original Sir Finley, like, yeah, I insta-bought that. But, like, you know, they're cute, but it's like, I don't really need, you know, I already don't need more portraits. And, like, when I have to buy a bundle with packs that I don't need, and I know I'm speaking from, like, you know, a certain point, you know, which is not necessarily the average player, but, like, I've got all the cards. I don't need more packs. I don't really want, like, all the bundles were like a class that I don't really need another portrait for if I was going to get one. And, like, you know, even the priest portrait this time was, you know, not fantastic. So, but, you know, it's hopefully they're trying a few different things, right? So they're trying this time. They'll see how this goes. Maybe they try a different approach, you know, with the next expansion or something. You know, I mean, they're always experimenting with different stuff. You know, they started putting, like, the selection of Battlegrounds portraits in the shop for you to be able to buy at smaller. I mean, it's not everything, and I don't know how they choose them other than some sort of ML. But they're there, so they're trying it. You know, they just need to try enough things to figure out what works, I guess. So, you know, they'll get data one way or the other.
My understanding is that it picks portraits that it probably is just popularity based on what you don't have. Because my understanding is that it only offers portraits you don't like. It would make sense to only offers portraits you don't have. But I also feel like there should have been better advertisement of, like, hey, there are dollar portraits in the shop. But if it weren't for other content creators, I never would have known about this. It's only in the BG shop, and it's a rotating selection of dollar portraits.
Yeah, and you have to scroll down fairly far to find them. So, like, you can go in, like, see the top line bundle that got added that week, clear your notification, and never see them.
Yeah, I'm surprised there wasn't more emphasis put on that. Like, maybe they don't want us doing the low dollar purchases, but I think the whole point here is just to build some consumer goodwill by advertising things that are a good value and only purchasable with their new currency. You create this direct connection between value and runestones. You want that link. You want that feeling of runestones are a good deal because they let me do this.
I mean, it's also free money to some extent, right? Because, I mean, these are portraits that they're already made. Like, they're bringing them back to be sold. Like, if somebody buys it, like, they're not offering those bundles again, probably. I mean, maybe they will, but they're unlikely to. So it's like those portraits aren't earning them any more money, and this is a way for them to earn them more money, so that, like, any money that somebody's giving them is positive, right? I mean, you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
my analytics, business intelligence brain starts going when I see this stuff, and I'm not going to speculate on the podcast, but, you know, it's definitely, it's interesting, and I'm hoping that they're doing a lot of A/B testing. That's all I'll say.
like, there's a lot of these that I would get for, I don't know, 2, maybe 500 runestones after 2 years or whatever, right? If they wanted to, or whatever they deem is, like, enough time that it will, like, inconvenience people who are more interested in them, so that not everyone is just like, well, I'll wait until it's on sale, right? But I will otherwise just not get them, right? Because it will pass me by during the time it's in the shop, and then be gone. And who knows when it's like, I think there can very easily be an in between of like them maybe being unwilling to put stuff for gold in, but they could put it for a modest number of runestones.
Or or just like put it in the shop for whatever price you want to sell it at. It doesn't have to be a discount. Like put it in the shop when you put the bundle in. Have the bundle be like a value. Like if you buy these 3 together, you'll get a discount. But just put it in the shop so you can buy it individually and leave it there. Right? Like that's what's frustrating is like you can't go back and buy older things. And like I mean, again, I look at, when I've like, I started playing Runeterra again because they came out with the new expansion, and I went and looked, and the skins that are there for the Star Guardians, which was the last event that ended like 2 months ago, are all still there, and you can still buy them for the same price. And that's great. Like if I wanted to spend money on that, I could still do it even though I missed that event. Like there were bundles that I could have bought at the time that would have made it cheaper, but I can still go buy that skin for that price that it was when it launched. And
and the piecemeal thing is kind of the bare minimum for me, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe I won't do both of them together, but I if one is more exciting, I'll do just the one. And we could be wrong on this, but I feel like there's more folks who would be down to go in for just the one than, at least with the ones that they've been putting out, are going to be, well, I have to have this one, so I'll just get the bundle.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people who just play one class or just main one class. Like they only have cards for one class, or that's all they like. Like I'll buy, an ill-advised number of pre-skins, but usually I won't go out of my way for most other classes. But if I have to get a bundle with like priest and rogue, like I'm not happy about that. I don't really want a rogue portrait. I want the priest portrait. That's it.
Yeah. Either way, business team,
Yeah.
Hope you're listening. Let us pay you smaller amounts of money at a time instead of no money all at once. Because I'd like to
Also,
pay you. Yeah.
consider adding hero powers for a cheap amount. I don't use emotes ever, so all I care about are the hero powers. I just want sweet, different animated hero powers.
I would be willing to bet you're in the minority there. I think about the most people are like mostly in for the emotes for the most part, or the portrait itself. But yeah,
I mean, they make the portraits that have different hero powers cost more.
Yeah.
And usually those are the ones that I'm interested in.
Yep. Like the cool dragon mage one. I forget their name.
Celeste.
Celeste. Pretty cool.
I just like that one because it's faster.
Well, I like that too, but it's also like a space dragon. There's You can like something for more than one reason. In addition, a couple some other small items, but important ones. So on the main Activision Blizzard Twitter feed, there is a link to an interview with Cora, who she started as an esports caster, and later, I'm reading the direct quote here, this is the direct quote, and later helped design one of the most successful expansions in the game's history. So, I guess the game's not dying. Also, congratulations, Cora. Yeah, the first sentence of this article, one of the most popular Hearthstone expansions in years, Murder in Castle Nathria launched in August to historically high levels of engagement. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of discussion about Cora, about her. College card master turned commentator turned lead designer, and all of her feedback and discussion, and just a really great story here. Yeah. So, congrats, Cora. Well deserved. And you made a pretty good set. Pretty good set. I like it. So yeah, check out that article. And then the last note is also about a person that's on the Hearthstone team, or at least used to be. We have found out that Alec Dawson may remember him as Alec, who used to be the head of final design over on the Hearthstone team, is now the lead hero designer in Overwatch 2. So, hey Alec, congratulations, buddy. And that is our news section this week. We warned you. Not a lot going on. We have this economic sidebar. We're still under 40 minutes into the show. It is that kind of week. We are waiting for something. We don't know what we're waiting for, but we're waiting.
Something fun. We're waiting for something fun. That's what we're waiting for.
Yes, that's what we were told. So, let's go to tournament time before we get to the mailbag.
It's the Grand Tournament!
So we had Lobby Legends Murloc sized. I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Murgo.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the 7th Lobby Legends. Once again, very heavily dominated by Asia. It was really there was only one representative from NA, was Sleepy, and XQN from EU. Otherwise, it was all APAC and Chinese players in the final lobby. Yanase was the big winner and only needed 6 lobbies in order to win. Put the lobby in check after lobby number 4 with 2 straight wins, and then that obviously put a target on their back, but was able to get the win in the 6th lobby. It was the 7th lobby, rather, I should say. Was able to, because they got second in the 6th lobby and then was able to win it in number 7. And there was a little bit of controversy in the final lobby. Another hidden body is a quest reward that got returned after it was disabled close to the launch of quests. That's the one where after you do whatever, you're able to discover a minion of your tavern tier. In this case, it was adding 6 cards to his hand. And apparently they sped up the animation, but not enough, and he wasn't able to finish his turn. And
they sped it up from 10 seconds to somewhere between 5 and 6 seconds, which is twice as fast and still a huge chunk of the turn to have locked out all the time.
Right. So there was a battle that it seemed like he could have won if he was able to finish his turn, but the animations got in the way, so there was a little bit of he had a tweet about, if I'm going to lose potentially thousands of dollars to a bad animation, at least everyone saw it. I don't have to explain to people how disgusting it was. So, would it have mattered in the grand scheme of things? I mean, possibly he had the lobby in check. So if he had won that particular lobby, then he would have won the tournament. But, it's unfortunate, and, those kinds of things happen. So that's that. We have, I believe, 2 more Lobby Legends this year. One of them is going to be $100,000 final, and then we have we know who the 48 players are going to be qualifying for Lobby Legends 8. So that's going to be October is going to be the last ladder month towards BGs, and then there's this $100,000 final Lobby Legend sometime at the end of the year, but we haven't heard anything more about that. So that's coming. We also had Supergirl Gamer Pro Week 2 featuring Gascaster Edelweiss, which we had Andefern, who was able to win that week with Curse Imp Warlock, Ping Mage, Wig Priest, and Miracle Rogue. Andefern is a pretty well-known priest enthusiast, and these were not slow priest decks that she was playing. Like the earlier matches were taking a while, and Andefern just like blew through her matches and put on quite a show. I mean, she's a very talented player. This is one of the great things about this tournament, is that you get to see some of these players who are very talented get featured who wouldn't otherwise. The run-up was Monse also from Latin America, who had a much more control-oriented lineup of Curse Imp Warlock, Control Paladin, Control Shaman, and Beast Hunter. Edel, anything you wanted since you had a front row seat, anything you want to point out about this bracket, or?
She walked away. So we'll
Oh,
just
she
pause
did,
here
because
for a
I was.
second.
I don't have her camera up. Okay,
We'll just.
we'll
That's a
give her a
good
minute.
question. We can hang
Yeah.
out. Hey,
Yeah.
how you doing, chat?
Okay.
How you doing? Raw audio. Raw audio. You the real MVPs. This is just for you.
So, yeah, Edel, anything you wanna add about week 2 of Supergirl Gamer Pro, given that you had a front row seat to all the matches?
Yeah, it was nice to cast. I made liberal use of my mute button on the microphone, but honestly, that was that was super challenging, but somehow managed to be somewhat okay. I don't think I ever want to cast with a cough again, if possible, but it is a thing I can do, at least with Dragon Rider able to cover for me the one time that I was like coughing while cams were going. But yeah, it was pretty sweet. Andafern is a great player who I've seen in like all the previous Supergirl Gamer Pro stuff. From the Latin American scene, which, let's be honest, like Latin America kind of carries the Americas region in terms of like global performance. I don't know. We just can't seem to show up U.S. and Canada too frequently. But Brazil especially has a number of strong players, and I could have this wrong, but I believe Andafern is one of the Brazilian players. So great matches to watch. I've got some ideas for how I want to tackle this next week. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, it's just one of my favorite tournaments. I'm so glad that they do it each year, because it's just like good sportsmanship. It's a smaller event, so it's not like this massive scale. It's just like a very cozy tournament experience.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also the consistency of like the people who are like, it's still the same names that you hear, year after year, even though there's a large bracket, qualifying. But it's, you still like, Ephemia and Defern, and I mean, Nasel is someone who is seen a lot as a caster in Latin America. I mean, obviously you're in the conversation as well, and a lot of like players who we see in these tournaments over and over again. So it is cool to see that consistency from year to year as well. There's going to be a Battlegrounds circuit for Supergirl Gamer Pro that is starting this Saturday as you're listening to it, listening to us. Qualifiers will be on October 22nd and October 29th. And there will be playoffs on November 12th with a $2,500 prize pool. So if you are a woman or someone who identifies as a woman and you play Battlegrounds, you should go check that link and go sign up for that. And then finally, the final episode of Mull It Over with Gia just went up today on Ping Mage. Obviously, Gia, part of the Battlegrounds team now, and retiring from casting. And so she is, she recorded one last one of those, and those are always really, really informative episodes. So if you're trying to get better at that deck in particular, or just in general, it's worth your time to watch those. Hopefully somebody else will pick that up. I'm not sure who, but it seems like something Saddle could do. Saddle seems like out of the remaining casters, seems like the one most likely to pick up that mantle. But something like that is, I think it's something that we'll really miss. So hopefully there's going to be something similar, in whatever form that Hearthstone esports takes going into 2023.
That was my favorite content on the channel, and I would like it a lot if there was some kind of replacement. If they hire Edelweiss on, then I think that'd be something that she could very easily do.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen it here, many times. So let's all keep our fingers crossed and our toes potentially.
And I'm using this opportunity. Edelweiss had to step away from the episode, everyone, for at least a little bit, because her cough took a turn for the worse while we were talking. So thanks. I'm glad that she was able to use her mute button, as she alluded to, but you might not hear her for the rest of the episode. We're going to leave her camera on, leave her mic on. But that cough looked pretty vicious, so hope you feel better, Edel. And we're going to dive into this mailbag here. We'll talk it over and leave the opportunity open for her to come back if her throat settles down. Here we go. All right. So, thank you all who wrote in for the Dexplanations mailbag this week, because, we don't have a deck that we're all coalesced around right now. Format still feels pretty newish. Like, I don't really know what to make of what's, like, legit good outside of Naga Priest, Curse Imp, Warlock. Like, I know about that stuff, but I'm not really sure what to explain here, especially with the looming possibility of the format being turned on its head in however long it is.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a deck guide, and we were talking about it, but it's like, well, we could talk about Naga Priest, but we've already talked about that, and like, it's hard to know like what to talk about, and yeah, it could just be like Monday, could just be completely gone.
Who knows? So we asked you what to talk about, and there were a lot of really good questions in the Discord, so we have them here. So we're going to start. Forest Bates, what do you all think if they'd introduced Prince Renathal, for example, as a new wild-only legendary instead of in standard? Like, they haven't introduced any wild-only cards, so maybe it could have made a splash. Or a whole wild mini-set. Maybe you do a mini-set for a set like Ungoro that didn't have one, just to draw players into that format.
I mean, is it going to, though? I feel like what we need is a new format that's somewhere between wild and standard, more so than we need like to try to incentivize people to go play wild. Like we had a Brawliseum, like that's going to get people to play wild. And I mean, I don't think it was that was certainly not a disaster, but I mean that's it. I don't know that that's really had a really lasting impact on the format. And like, I think that the problem is just like, it's going to be, it is what it is, right? Like I just looked at the leaderboards. It's the 20th of the month. There's like 2,000 wild legends. There's about 6,000 standard legends in constructed.
Kind of low for both,
And
actually.
It is low for both, but yeah, but I mean, it's still like a third, which is pretty good, I'd say.
Better than I
all
thought,
things considered.
I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I would have
it's actually
expected that
better than
number
I
to
thought
be
too,
like
yeah.
starting with a 1.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, I think that wild is just, it is what it is, and like, I don't know that there's a perception that you need too many cards to play it, whether or not that's true. There's a lot of cards in that format now, and that's a problem from a few different perspectives. One is just like the decks are bananas, and if you don't enjoy that kind of experience, like it's gonna get old quick once you climb beyond a certain point. And to be fair, that point's probably like 9x in wild, because you can still play some goofy stuff before that. But it's also like, if you're gonna make that your main format, like you kind of have to be okay with a lot of things that people tend to not be okay with, and it's also just like, how much stuff do I need to craft in order to get there, right? When we have like it can be a challenge for a lot of people just to keep up with standard. So like maybe if there's a way to kind of like give an on-ramp for people who have not been playing as long as we have, but like, started playing in the last couple of years, like you start, I don't know, Rise of Shadows or something. Maybe that's something that then they could throw their weight behind. But I mean, when they've been pretty clear that they're not interested in balancing for wild for good reason, and we're not designing for wild, it would be kind of weird to do that, right? And I think I think the other thing is that you're kind of getting a lot of excitement with the announcement, and I think that would kind of lose a lot of that in the process when it's like, oh, but you have to play wild to do it, right?
Wild is a tale of two formats, and only one of them is in the game right now. So the concern that I would have over cards being released specifically for wild is that you are signing up to make some crazy stuff. Because if you are aiming for a new thing to be impactful to the powerful format, you have to aim high. You have to aim for a 10. And if you aim for a 10 and you hit a 13, you break the format. And we have seen Wild be broken before, and it is really something when it's too powerful for that format. Stealer of Souls comes to mind. I mean, the Demon Seed, pretty crazy. There are a lot of things that have been too good for Wild, and it makes the format. And this is a format with consistent turn 3 Neptulons. It makes that format too powerful. It's what we have now. The turn 3 Neptulons are the thing they left behind. The thing they said, no, this is fine. So, the two formats that I alluded to, you have two audiences in Wild for the most part. Like, it's there's a casual audience, there's a third audience that just wants to keep playing whatever they have built forever, but that is, balance doesn't apply to them because it doesn't influence their decisions, and typically their opponents are also not influenced by those decisions, so you don't need to cater to that audience very much other than leave Wild in the game. You need to have a button they can click to play whatever they want, but casual works too. It's like, it's whatever. But the two major audiences are, I want a super powerful format with all the cards, and I want to play my old cards. So, the format where I think there's opportunity is the one that isn't in the client, is Battle of the Patches, Battle of the Expansions. You pick two standard years, two adjacent standard years, and you play standard decks from that. Like, you pick a 6 set where you end.
The World's Brawl.
Yeah. But
the
like,
World's Tavern Brawl, where they did that, yeah.
Competing metas. So, I want to know, would Quest Rogue in Ungoro compete well with Pure Paladin from Scholomance? Something like that. It's the Smash Brothers of standard decks. Take all the standard decks, make them playable the way they were in the game, and let me jam them into each other. So, in that format, a mini set for Ungoro would be super cool, and you wouldn't have to design really high-end cards, because it would be relatively impactful to a smaller group of decks, to cards. You wouldn't have to aim super high, because you're limited to 6 total sets to build your decks from anyway. I would be curious if they can conquer the technical and just, like, logistical hurdles there. It's very hard to explain. It's very hard to understand where would your cutoffs be. How would you exactly group these things? Would patches align with specific balance things? How would you pick that in the game? How would you pick that in the menu? There are a lot of challenges here at every level. But if they could do it, that's the format where we want to see a mini set or a Prince Renathal release.
Yeah, and I think the other thing about doing like a mini set or a single card for Wild is like whenever you're releasing something that's like a small percentage of the meta, like when you have a mini set in standard, you're going to you're adding like 35 cards into a set of like, I don't know, like 700, 800, I don't know where we are. Like those have to be at a certain power level to make an impact, right? That we saw that with Maw and Disorder, where a lot of them really didn't, right? Like there are a couple of cards that we're seeing, like Order in the Court is one that we're seeing a lot finally after some nerfs, but like a lot of the cards that got introduced just aren't seeing play, right? If you're designing a mini set for Wild, you have to go like that much higher to make it do anything, which means that it's just very likely to break the format. And that audience also is very vocal and generally doesn't like that format being messed with a lot in a negative way. Because, when they do get attention and it's negative and it ends up breaking the format, then they don't really have anywhere else to go, right? Like that's kind of the way that those types of things go. I mean, they're already dealing with that when things get released for standard that are broken in Wild. But when something's like, designed to be broken in Wild just so people will play it, it's asking for trouble, I think.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to think about, but it goes back to the Wild dilemma of what is Wild really, and that is a big question that does not have clear answers. In the grand scheme of things, I'd rather just not aim for that format because it's trying to disrupt it can be problematic. And also, if you whiff, it's also not great. If you aim for a reasonable power level, then nobody plays them. It just becomes a meme.
Yeah, and then they get upset, like, well, why are you even bothering? And like Wild is like that episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns goes to the doctor, and they explain that he's not dead because he's got like literally every virus, and they're all trying to get through the door all at the same time, and they can't. So so he's everything's living in equilibrium, and he thinks he's indestructible. Like that's the Wild meta. When you tinker with it a little bit, then one of the viruses gets through, and then everybody dies. Not literally, but
Yeah, I get the idea of what you're getting at.
Yeah.
All right, next question here from Leaf. If you could keep one Hearthstone card up your sleeve to add to your hand in game anytime, what would it be? Edelweiss and I have the same answer. It is obviously preparation. Like, just a rogue just has a prep? Like, come on. You know that's the thing. But Steve, you can give a different answer, an incorrect one.
Well, if it's standard, probably Clean the Scene, because I always want that card right now. Like that's like one of the best priest cards they printed in a really long time. But yeah, I mean it's gonna be a priest card anyway. I mean if we're going all the way back, oh gosh, probably Shadow Reaper Anduin.
Oh
Just
boy.
because like why would you not?
I assumed you would say Shadow Visions.
Oh yeah. I mean I guess that's kind of wishing for more wishes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a priest.
Yeah. Or
It's-
Zephrys.
That is, yeah, Zephrys is probably the answer. Like, generally I think of this question of, you want a general utility card? I suppose you could do just, like, the Magic Companion equivalent, or the Quest Reward equivalent of you just keep your, if it was a Jace, Darkweaver, Fel DH would be a lot better.
Yeah.
And, like, think about how hard Paladins are working to play Order in the Court, draw Carriel on time. What if you just could have a Carriel when you wanted?
Yeah. I mean, Whirlpool is probably that answer too right now. I mean, just, wipe the board. But even that's not as good as Clean the Scene a lot of the time.
Yeah. All right. Next question here. Fidorm, if you could only take one card back to Classic with you, what would it be? Edelweiss said Bloodsworn Mercenary, which is super not surprising to me. Though I think that card is above the power level of that format. But, I mean, this is if wishes were fishes. Where are you at, Steve?
Guff.
Oh, boy.
Because, I mean, yeah. Because, I mean, if Druid's already broken in Classic as it is, just imagine Classic Force of Nature Druid with Guff.
I'm trying to think. What would be the purpose that I'd be looking to serve by bringing a card back? And, like, do you try and balance that part of the game? Do you try and make good classes better? What do you try and do? Because, like, if it's for a nostalgia purpose, I would be interested in playing Dark Peddler, because I love Dark Peddler and I want it to be good, and it would have been good enough in Warlock back then. If I think to making a bad class better, it is actually still probably Shadow Visions, because it would make Priest playable back then. Paladin was really light on options.
I mean,
Sunkeeper
Paladin just got, like, muster for battle.
Well, that was
in
in
Classic.
GVG. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like if it just got, 'cause that was the card that made it a
Yeah.
lot better.
Well,
Like, if it
Muster-
just got like muster for battle.
Muster might have been too good back then. Sunkeeper Terra. I would like to see
Oh
what.
god.
But
Yes, muster for battle's too good. So let's give them Sunkeeper Tarum. Yeah.
It costs
okay.
6. They didn't have a muster. You reward board development. It's very paladin-y. It's really paladin-y, and it's a legendary in a class with no draw. I would be curious to see what that would look like. Like, it would be really strong. I don't know if it would be too good. There's a chance that it is. But Paladin needed so much help back then. I wonder if one card slot for a very cool effect that is very paladin-y would be the way to go. It's an interesting question. Because you can also, like, there are a lot of ways to disrupt Classic in a huge way if you wanted to. You could bring back some stuff in Classic that would just completely distort the format, like, Guff, for example. I think pretty much any hero card.
I figured your
that.
answer was going to be Garrett
No, I don't
in Miracle Rogue.
I don't like Garrote Rogue. I don't like it. I don't want to
I
do
know,
that.
but it would just make Miracle Rogue like better.
But I don't feel a need for that deck to be different. If I was looking to add a card to Miracle Rogue to make it much better, the answer is Prize Plunderer.
Mm.
That
Yeah,
is the
that's true.
card that I would bring back. It is perhaps my favorite card of all time at this point. It is incredibly powerful and would give Rogue even more swing opportunity and a little bit of board presence. Yeah.
You know what the other one that would be interesting is Elise Starseeker for Control Warrior. Just to give it some endgame that wasn't just like Grom.
For those of you that weren't around back then, Lee Starseeker, 4 mana, 3/5. You shuffle a map into your deck. It's a 2 mana, draw a card, shuffle the Golden Monkey into your deck, and then you draw the Golden Monkey, which transforms your hand and deck into random legendaries. So that was Wallet Warrior in Classic. You just jammed every good legendary into the deck, and you went with like Alex and Ysera and Grom and Sylvanas and Ragnaros and whatever. But when Elise came out, people cut all the stuff and just added removal. I didn't have to do that. And Lepton in chat is saying, I don't know what you do with Shutterwalk, but it would be funny to try it.
It would
That
be
is
funny.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also don't know what you do with Shutterwalk. I'm not going to think about it too much because it's going to drive me crazy. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean the thing with the Elise too is that like all the legendaries were bombs back then. Right? Like there were some that were bad, but not a lot, and there were a lot more that were just like bombs. So you get a lot of value out of it if you live that long.
Yeah. All right. Next question. You get to answer this one first. Some players prefer little interaction with their opponent, while some prefer lots of interaction. Is there a way to meet both of these preferences?
I mean, you can, right? I mean, the way that you get that is by variety of a meta, right? Like if you, it's like uninteractivity is frustrating when you're seeing it constantly. We learned that in the Stormwind meta, right? Like I think that, I mean, like, we're kind of there now, right? Like where you can be uninteractive or you can be very board based, but there's a lot of different ways that you can play. And if there's a lot of different viable decks and you're not running into the same deck over and over again, then you do get to have those games enough, right? Like you're not going to have it every single game. Like nobody's ever going to have like the perfect experience every single game. But as long as you can have it more often than not, or at least like 50-50, then it's a little bit better than like, because we're not even close to where we were. Like we're like the polar opposite of where we were in Stormwind at this point. Like it's a very board-based meta. It's a very interactive meta, but you can still play Control. Like you can play Control Paladin, you can play Quest Priest, you can play, I mean, Control Shaman is a board-based deck, but you can play it. It's still a control deck. So like there's room for all of those strategies. But you need a very diverse meta to get there.
So, Edelweiss's answer here. Kind of. You can sway between each from year to year. Alternatively, make a lot of really narrow interaction cards that people feel they can reach for answers they need them, but most of the time it'll be wrong, especially on ladder. This is what Steam Cleaner is for. My answer? What is interaction? What does that word mean? Who feels like they can express what interaction means? Because I don't. This format is extremely interactive. It is all board battles, and they printed a ton of disruption. People love Theotards, super interactive. They do not. That was a joke. So, what does interaction mean? I do think that it is important for players to feel like they have agency. Agency, of course, the idea that the decisions I make matter to the outcome of this game. There are times in the past where we have had no disruption, and there's been a lot of from-hand power where it feels like you get the wrong matchup and you lose. You don't want that. Steve, you've experienced that where you see the quest on turn 1 and you were the priest and you're like, why should I play out the game? Yeah. You don't want that. But that is not interaction or uninteraction. That is the power from hand stuff is too high, and there's not enough checks and balances. There's not a
And
question.
it's polarized matchups. Like
it's not
it doesn't matter
like
if it's interactive or not. If the matchup is like 90-10, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And also, they made the quest worse. They made the Warlock quest worse. They made the deck worse. Like, it didn't make that matchup favorable, but it took it to a 30-70, and you can win those some of the time. So, make the cards that are too good at that worse. But you need some way, like the perhaps the diametric opposition that's being spoken to here is high from hand power versus low from hand power, and high from hand disruption versus low from hand disruption, right? When you have high from hand power and low disruption, you end up with something like Stormwind, where it feels like every deck is just capable of killing you in turn 8 out of nowhere. You don't want that necessarily. I enjoyed a lot of what was going on in Stormwind. I think that there was enough disruption, but there were a lot of people that clearly didn't like it, so you got to take that into consideration. But there were a lot of people that really did like it. So you got to be somewhere in that ballpark some of the time. You got to be somewhere in that neighborhood. But you don't want too much disruption either, because look at how people talk about Elusian Theatar. Let's look at that. It cannot be a defining part of the game where you're supposed to be excited to do your stuff when you don't get to do your stuff a lot of the time. So I think people will fixate on the phrase interaction the way they fixated on tempo, in that I don't know if it means anything anymore other than I don't feel like I enjoy the game I'm playing, and this is a rough way to approximate what other people have said in the past. Agency is the word that I'm going to lean into here. There have been times where there's a lot of agency, but that's not because there's too much from hand power or because there's not enough. It's somewhere in the middle. Because when you have not enough, then you end up in really grindy, slow metagames where it gets undone by late-game power spikes. Samuro Apotheosis.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't feel like I had agency, even though I had plenty of turns to do what I wanted to do. I wasn't dead, but I wanted to die because all of my work got undone and my opponent full healed. But it's very interactive. One of their minions attacked one of my minions, and their minion interacted all over my minions. Like, it's a buzzword at this point.
And I think, like, as far as the Theatar, and I don't want to get down that road too far, but I mean, people have been complaining about, like, well, Theatar Drift didn't do anything because people are still playing it. I mean, it did make it worse, according to VS, but still, like, people are still playing it. But, I mean, you're not going to decrease the play rate of Theatar by nerfing Theatar. The problem is more of, like, a meta level problem where there's a lot of power tied up in single cards in powerful battle cries or in powerful effects that can't be disrupted other than that. So, like, the only way that you stop them is by not allowing them to play it in the first place. Like, you can't stop the Jailer once it comes down. You have to take it out of their hand. You can't stop. You can run a Viper, but otherwise you need to take Carriel or take Dawn Grasp out of their hand so they can't play it and can't get the effect. So, like, in order to make Theatar less palatable, we need to have less of those, but that's not going to happen really anytime soon because there's so much power tied up in those cards, and that's just been kind of a theme. And it's not to say it's good or bad, it's just kind of a reality of what it is. But you also, there needs to be some sort of counterplay. Theatar is it's a blunt force object for those types of things, but it does serve a purpose in that it allows people to at least go into those matchups feeling like they have some sort of a chance, some sort of a line that they can take, right? And it's maybe a 30% chance when it even happens if you've drawn it on time, so it's not a great chance, but at least it gives them something to feel like they had some control over the outcome when otherwise it just, comes down to did you get to play that card on time or not.
Yeah, Theatar serves a purpose. I don't mind they printed him. I think perhaps the error in judgment was printing him at a cost that made him almost tempo neutral, and you really want him to feel like a cost and a compromise as opposed to a choice. So that's why I think the 6 mana thing is still something that we've been kicking around, and hopefully the team is too. And I don't think that Theatar is too good right now, but I think the people that dislike Theatar are still seeing enough of him that they feel compelled to run him as well to steal back the thing that got stolen, and like it just needs to be worse so that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's like Ticketus was not great at disruption, and generally you put it in your deck and you would lose, but that doesn't mean that people would stop playing it, and it didn't mean that it felt any less bad when you played against it, and certainly when you ended up losing to it. If anything, it felt worse when you lost to it because you knew you were losing to a bad deck.
We've got another question here from Magisa, great question for us. So this is in a very different vein, but I was recently talking to my therapist, who's also a neuropsychologist, about my experience in Hearthstone given my ADHD, in particular how we manage our working memory when playing the game. She also listened to an old Off Curve episode, Role Play, in which you, Steve, discussed your experience with this particular diagnosis in card games, which has been a big part of your life. You wrote some blog posts about it, RNG in games, all sorts of stuff. So the question is how ADHD and or other neurodiversity interacts with playing the game. Does it approach getting better, how we play out turns, how we manage a broader game plan, how we deal with the mental game, picking times to play, so on and so forth. And Steve, why don't you take the lead here, because you have a lot of experience talking about this as well, and I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, and I mean, the answer is Deck Tracker is a lot of it. Having a lot of that working memory externalized makes a big difference. Like, I've tried to play on my phone. This is one of the reasons I never actually got into competing myself, because like in the time when I would have dedicated myself to it, lands were still a thing, and in lands you couldn't have Deck Tracker. You had to like take notes on pen and paper if they even allowed that, and that was just a non-starter for me, because like 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 even absent that, right? Like if I'm looking down at a notepad writing something down, I'm not looking at their hand, I'm not seeing where the cards came from, right? Like something like where I can look at my Deck Tracker and say, okay, that card's been on the left since turn 4. That would be absolutely impossible without Deck Tracker, just because like I would not be able to like watch it. And you can see this on my stream whenever I try to play Murloc Holmes, and unless I was actively like taking notes with Murloc Holmes, I would just like, okay, I can't remember. Yeah. Like I can't remember what the hell I can't remember what I did last turn. Like people will say something in chat about something that happened the last turn. I can't even remember the game state from last turn. And so it's like, I'm not gonna remember what they played from like the beginning of the game. But, you know, being able to externalize that, and I've gotten some arguments on Twitter about whether Deck Tracker is like an accessibility accommodation or not. And I feel like it is. There's some players that feel like it's a crutch. I feel like it is like an accessibility feature that is just not in the game, because like a number of other games, like in Magic Arena, you can go look through the graveyard or look through the exile pile and at least see what's been played. And you can't you can't go back beyond like, you know, this turn or the last, or if you're playing against Rogue like halfway through their current turn in the sidebar. But I just kind of do what I can and just recognize that that's going to be a limitation for me. But you know, externalizing what I can helps, and also just kind of like muscle memory. Like I don't have to remember to go through like, okay, you know, I need to do these things in this order because I've just done them so many times that it becomes routine. And like anything you can kind of put to your subconscious helps a little bit more. But it's been a struggle, and I've definitely struggled with mindfully playing the game. I've talked about that on Off Curve a few times way back when, like when I was trying to climb seriously, I would have to put it in full screen because I would have this temptation to, you know, flip off to Twitter or flip away from the screen and you know, miss what's going on and then be upset that I was losing. So like mindful, you know, when I'm playing, I'm, you know, making sure like, am I awake enough? Have I eaten? Am I pissed off at whatever meetings I was in this morning? You know, and like those sorts of things, because those won't help. But also just kind of like, if I'm going to play at a high level, I need to be in a mentally good place to do that, in a position where I feel like I can pay attention, which is usually on the weekends or during my stream, because like during my stream I end up talking through a lot of my plays, and that kind of helps me. But it's hard, and it's, you know, when there's a lot of stuff that you need to kind of keep in your brain, and I still struggle with like forgetting something that I should be playing around because I don't have it in front of me. That happens a fair amount.
Yeah. The Deck Tracker thing, I think, it's a large discussion that wasn't asked, but just to give a really, really short answer on that, it's just a question of which skills that you are trying to value and pull for. If you wish to value memory, focus, tracking, whatever, you're going to have a smaller pool of players that are capable of doing that. I personally believe that it will bias towards younger players, because these are the sort of things that as you get older, memory gets worse. That is just how the human brain works. And so I think that rewarding that specific skill, talent, ability, whatever you want to call it, is shrinking the pool in a way that might result in more homogenous representation. And I think that if you're looking for instead to focus on the strategic aspects of the game instead of the technical one, Deck Tracker doesn't take anything away because you still have to make the decisions, you just don't have to do the administration. But if you think, as a tournament organizer, head of esports, whatever, that administration is a skill that you want to pull for and reward, and you understand the impact that could have on the representation of people playing in your events and doing well, that's a decision you can make. You can probably guess where I land on this, but it's, I don't run any esports organizations. I mean, I guess I run THL and we allow Deck Tracker, but either way,
you can't really police it when people are playing from home anyway. So,
I have no interest in doing so if I could.
Yeah, like a rule that you can't enforce is not a rule. So,
yeah. But as for me, like, Steve and I share this diagnosis, but I'm going to focus more on the impulses I feel that have led me astray and what I can do about it and how I realize in retrospect that maybe not everyone feels that way. I tend to play very impulsively. I tend to play very, very fast. And I've learned I lose more when I do that. So I just try and verbalize it out loud. I have tried to build the habit of verbalizing out loud, or at least like typing it in a notepad document or something, of just taking an impulse and turning it into language. That act makes me think about it more. That's what makes me think about what should I do more. The impulse to keep playing when I know I should stop for the evening because I just had a bad loss or an exciting win. And I should note, this is a work in progress. I'm not going to tell you that it's a skill. What I've tried to connect is realize, like, when the memory of the consequences start to feel more exciting than the memory of the actions. When I remember how terrible I felt in the morning, thinking about that helps me go to bed a little earlier. Sometimes. There are other times when maybe my decision-making skills aren't as engaged, and then I make a bad decision, and then I realize it the next day, and it's, there are ups and downs there. Something that I've learned over the years just in real life is that as a younger man, and this ties into the memory thing, I was able to hold things in mind and then remember them later and do them. And that was my to-do list for years. But then in my late 20s, early 30s, I realized I kept forgetting what I was supposed to be doing, so I would either have to spend the mental energy to hold the stuff, or I would think about something else and it would be gone. So instead, I just started compulsively writing things down. On the front screen of my phone, there are 5 different ways to add a task into the same program. It is in the bottom bar, it is in the middle widget, it is from the top drop-down, it is from a different place in the same top drop-down, and also if I tap twice on the back of my phone. All of those help me write down a quick note as to something I'm supposed to do. I can add a date, I can add a priority, I can add a category, whatever, but just writing it down and looking at it later. So this applies to Hearthstone as well. If I need to keep a card in mind, I have told the story many times in this show. For like 2.5 years, I kept losing to the card swipe. Until I started opening a notepad document every time I was against Druid, and I wrote the word swipe. And I would look at that document before I made my play to make sure I didn't do a bunch of awesome value trades that left an entire board full of 1 health minions. I stopped losing to swipe mostly. And that's the kind of thing that I learned I had to find a way to help myself, not tell myself I should be better at this and brute forcing my way through it without any clear action plan of saying, no, this is something I keep doing. Let's try a different behavior and see if that gets us a different result. And it did.
Yeah. I think it also, if you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. Like, different people with ADHD, it manifests differently. Like, I think that's pretty clear in, like, the kinds of decks that you and I are drawn to. Like, I know that something I get a lot is, like, how the hell do you play 25-minute Priest Mirrors with ADHD? Doesn't that bore the living hell out of you? And the answer is that I'm drawn to novelty. So, like, I would rather sit through a 25-minute priest mirror with situations that have never come up before or not come up often, rather than play 5 games of Face Hunter where I'm playing the same cards on 1, 2, 3, because that is like, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. Whereas, as you know, I think you're the opposite, where like that, you know, that long of a game is torture. Like, but you know, you can play an aggro deck and just kind of, you know, jam those cards and, you know, hit people in the face quickly, and that's, you know, that
has been my coping mechanism. And also, like, I like aggro decks. It's not because of how my brain works, but it's a little bit because of how my brain works.
Yeah.
Great question, Megisa. Thank you for asking that. Tita Santana asks, if you could introduce Renathal to a meta of the past, which meta would you inject him into? Edelweiss said Witchwood, and now I want to throw up.
Oh, God. Those games took so long already. Oh, my God.
It wouldn't work in the even decks, so it would only be Odd Paladin, Odd Warrior. You probably wouldn't play him in Odd Rogue, but I guess you could.
Oh my God, Renathal with Deathstalker Rexar with Lifesteal Beasts. Oh my God, no.
Yeah.
Oh.
Edelweiss cannot speak right now, so we're going to veto her suggestion and say that it's objectively wrong. What about you, Steve?
I don't know, maybe Barons. I guess, just because, like, Baron's Priest, 40 cards, feels like a time that would be fun for exactly me and nobody else. Like, if I could play, like, you know, whenever, like, basically whenever I was playing, like, fatigue games, right? So, like, yeah, that was, which is basically Barons. Like, having 10 extra cards. I mean, we were doing things like, you know, playing South Sea Scoundrels to make the other player draw to, you know, extend the fatigue. So that would that, or like whenever Hakar was in standard, probably. Like when we had a meta where Hakar was there. I don't remember why.
It was there for like 1 second.
Yeah. It was there to like counter Shirvala Paladin, I think. Theoretically. It didn't
Sounds
work.
Plausible. Yeah. So, I'm trying to think of the metas. I want to think of metas where you had to play aggro. That's what I want to think of metas where you really, really, really had to go fast. And where attrition might have worked, but mid-range didn't. Where it was all super aggressive stuff combined with controlling stuff. Alterac
so like
Valley.
Ungoro?
Alterac.
Yeah.
Ungoro, you could do some slower stuff. Like Control Paladin in Ungoro was really fun. It was really good, and it was slow.
But you got to a point where you basically had to play aggro in order to get over Quest Rogue.
I wasn't at that MMR at that point, and I would guess that the vast majority of people playing Hearthstone weren't. But at Super High Legend, I mean, they had to nerf that deck, right? Like, Renathal was not going to save us against Quest Rogue. But I think about Rogue Winter and Alterac, and how good Poison Rogue was at being Poison Rogue. And I feel like an extra 10 health against Rogue, Knowles, and Shanks would have been interesting to think about. And because the hero cards were so powerful at that time, you have a real consistency trade-off there. And also, that's the format with turn 1 original Iron Deep Trog, which also Renathal, I think, helps buffer against. I'm going to say Alterac. I think that would have been interesting.
Yeah. I'm going back to the year of the Raven thing, and like I'm just remembering that there were like Trinity Series matches, or like not Trinity, like Hearthstone Nations or whatever, that Global Games, that's what it was, Global Games, that took like over 2 hours already, even without Renathal, and people were playing like Benedictus to shuffle the opponent's deck into theirs already to counter Warrior, and like I'm just thinking with Renathal there, like we'd still be playing those matches.
Steve,
like we'd play them like right now.
I apologize because what I'm about to say will upset you and our listeners, but I have to say it. Rena Wall Priest.
Oh God, no.
Nope. Vetoed.
I don't know that I don't even know that you'd run it, because like you want to be pulling stuff consistently. I don't even know that you would run it in that deck.
I just want to think about how upset I would be by the concept.
Fair enough.
Matt at Arms in chat says I just threw up. Sorry, Matt. All right. The Grand Arcanum asks, craft the Demon Hunter Death Knight card. What's the hero power, cost, battle cry effect, voice lines? I mean, I'm not much of a creative designer, but I'm trying to think what would like Illidan is already morally green, gray, whatever.
Yeah.
He's already kind of a sketchy character that was pretty big on the ends justify the means, and so the means were kind of mean. So Death Knighting him, you have to distort him a little bit. Most of the Death Knights were like similar to what you'd think they do, but like the good guys, they had to distort pretty badly. Like Uther, the lifesteal weapon you get, but the Four Horsemen thing is a pretty big reach. Malfurion, they just gave him taunts and armor, like whatever. I wonder what a dead version of Illidan would look like.
I bet it would be something like, I mean, it's going to be something where it's giving him attack, right? Because like you kind of have to, and it's probably like +3 attack with like the glaive effect, where if you even not even an honorable kill, like the damage that you do to minions also hits face, like something like that.
It's gotta be you want to
Or
play
you get
into
to
the
attack twice a
evil
turn or
part.
something like that.
I think it would be self-damage into attack. Like maybe you self-damage yourself for 2 when you gain 3 attack. Something like that. Because it needs to be a big number, but the self-damage really expresses the evil and the extent of the sacrifice, and he probably goes more demonic than dead. Right? Like something like that. But I think the self-damage is kind of where I want to explore there.
Yeah, but none of those hero powers really hurt you a lot. Like none of like other than the fact that they might run out of useful. I mean, unless you were Garrosh, in which case like just playing the card was terrible. But like generally the hero powers were like OP and they didn't really have downsides.
Yeah. The Death Knight design was very different from how they do heroes now.
Yeah. I mean, they wanted them to be marquee cards, right? Like they wanted them to be flashy. They wanted you to press the button every turn. And they went in on it. I mean, for better or worse. So
Edelweiss's idea, which is made me spooked, which means it's probably pretty good. Soul Sunder Illidan at 7 mana. Battlecry, deal 1 damage to the enemy hero for each time you've attacked them this game. Which would probably be, in turn 7, it's probably not a huge number, but it's still probably like 5-6 damage or whatever, and you could save it for later if you wanted to. And then the hero power, 1 mana to gain 2 attack and lifesteal. And that is pretty evil. That is a pretty evil thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you've got cards that give you more attack, right? And then you can, as long as you have the lifesteal on it, then 1 mana to get lifesteal and then Fury or, Twin Slice or whatever the hell else you're doing. Yeah. That seems like it could grind out a game really long, which sounds like a Death Knight.
Yeah. Should probably just be 1 attack and lifesteal, but also like it's going to be such a pain to kill them after they get this going because you just have permanent Eldrazi Warblades. Yeah. But I think it's on brand. Let me see if I can get this image on
Sinful brand?
No. That card's bad. Okay, I think I can get this image on screen. Okay. Here we go. Look at that guy. He's evil. He's evil looking. Yeah. I wonder if I would change the damage to the enemy hero for each time you've attacked them to each time you've attacked. Something like that, just to give it a little boost, because right now it's a little underwhelming. Yeah. But it depends if multi-strike would be in the format or not, because that adds a bunch. But still, I think it's a pretty cool design, and the lifesteal actually does make sense. The other option, I think, like you mentioned, Steve, the multi-strike-esque ability could also work. It depends if you want it to have sustain or not. But the idea
you could give it Wind Fury too, yeah. That would be, yeah.
Well, you'd want to do. I think you'd want to do specifically the multi-strike text. Wind Fury is spooky. Like you're just ignoring a lot of the other stuff going on in the game.
Yeah, but this was also when they printed Shadow Reaper Anduin. So,
Anduin was fine. It was Raza that was the problem. All right. Couple more questions here. We'll move through them pretty fast. Contig, currently each class has faster and slower strategies like Agri Druid and Ramp Druid, Naga Priest and Quest Priest, so on and so forth. Do you think this is good for the game, or should some classes specialize more in one or the other, but not both? I'm a big believer in classes being expanded to do things that feel on brand within Identity, but have different ways of playing. I think that's a really, really good thing for the game in general, as long as if you do it while forsaking what the class is known for, that can be a mistake. Like in Stormwind, when we only had Shadow Priest as a priest deck, I can't think of too many priest mains that were really happy about it.
Nope.
But Shadow Priest existing was not the problem. It was the lack of a compelling slower priest deck. But Shadow Priest, it's cool to have that around as long as you have a slower priest deck for people that play priest all the time. Like, if the only rogue deck available was Voyage Pirate Rogue, then as many of you may know from Twitter.com, that rogue mains weren't thrilled about that. And they let us know a lot about that. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like having more ways to play is good, right? Like, I mean, even like you never really want like we have this discussion in THL, which is closed deck list all the time too. Like we just don't want to pick a class where you only have one deck just because like then your opponent knows what you're going to bring. It's kind of a niche scenario, but it's also like it makes the mulligan a little bit more interesting, too. I mean, right now it doesn't matter because anything could be a rogue, but in general, like when you're going in and you know that it's mage, and so mage is like, let's just say, only going to be big spell mage, so you don't really need to worry about anything until later, and you want to get rid of all your spells because you don't want them to barber them or whatever, right? Like that makes it a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more boring when you have to think about a couple different things when you're going into the mulligan, because like it used to be that way. It used to be that there was one way to play each class at most, and some classes just didn't have a deck. And I think it is good to have variety and have a couple different ways to play so that you can, expand. I mean, also think about people who are just getting started in the game, right? And they're trying to level up their classes to, be able to unlock cards, and having a couple different ways that you can go, as long as they make sense and they're supported. I think it's like having more ways to play the game is only a good thing.
Yeah. All right, couple quick hits here. Do you all have any ideas for new classes that aren't in WoW? Edelweiss alluding to our TAC episode from yesterday where we talked about Evoker, which is going to be in WoW before it is potentially in Hearthstone. Ooh, we had a not even conspiracy theory, not even rumor, but just like idea that they could simultaneously release in two games at the same time. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
a class that isn't in WoW.
I mean, I've said for a while I'd love to see what they would do with a bard. I don't know what it would do, but I mean, it's very on brand for like the tavern, and everything. And there's probably something with like, music and magic and stuff like that you could put together. I think that would be pretty interesting to see what they would do with that. Yeah,
and it's very Hearthstone-y, right? Like it's very much on brand with Hearthstone. Because we always think about WoW classes, but I want something that's whimsical and fun and does wacky Hearthstone stuff, right? I don't know how you would separate something like Summoner or whatever if you made something, because that might pigeonhole a class a little bit, and it might start to feel more like a Necromancer in a way. I don't know. But something like a hero power that makes stuff, that does stuff. I mean, I guess we have Silverhand Recruits and Totems, but something that's different from those. I don't know. Creativity on the spot has never been something I've been great at, but there's got to be, like, Monk, I guess, is like hand-to-hand combat sort of thing. What are we missing in terms of representation of what we'd want a class to do? Like, what the flavor would even be? Bard, I think, is a good shout.
Yeah, I was even going through Diablo classes, and the Diablo classes are all pretty much represented too. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, other than Monk, but like they're all in WoW. Like, I mean, Wizard, Necromancer, Demon Hunter, which is not. I mean, Demon Hunter is really rogue, but whatever. Crusader is basically Paladin, Barbarians, Warrior.
Yeah.
It's
The parallels are pretty direct.
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you have to go into like Final Fantasy Tactics jobs to start finding like, I mean, like you could probably do something like a Technomancer or something like that, right? Like, which is
Wait a
kind of
minute.
probably getting into like Dr. Boom territory to some
Wait
extent.
a minute. Shopkeep. Bob.
Oh yeah,
Bob. Make Bob a playable class.
yeah. They did that in One Step from Eden.
You could do your well played could be you got this, you're way ahead. Oh man.
Oh man.
Put
that's
Bob in
better
me.
than that's like Happy Feast of Wintervale level BM. Wow. Okay.
Put Bob in. Let me be Bob.
Oh
Let me
man.
do that. Hero power, like you couldn't do a 2-mana hero power that gives you a coin. Maybe you could do a 3-mana hero power that gives you a coin. Like it's
Or maybe you hero power to level up all the minions in your deck or something.
no Keleseth hero powers. We're not going to do that. Also, I will use this opportunity to mention Edelweiss's theory that her thought about what the fun thing could be in 24.6. If there is a new class and it is Death Knight, maybe we get Death Knight Initiate added to the game a month early, and we can play the new class with just a limited section of cards. I do think that
Did we talk about that last week?
We talked about it after the show,
Oh, okay.
but I don't believe it was discussed on the air. It's a possibility. I do think we don't want them to push the core card super hard or the initiate card super hard, but we also want the new class to see play and feel exciting. But you'd only be down to 10 cards in the expansion. I think it's a possibility. That would be wacky if they did that. Sure, make November more interesting. I don't know. And then finally, last question here from Tito Santana. What's something that Snap does that you'd like to see in Hearthstone? What's something Hearthstone does that you'd like to see in Snap? They are fundamentally different games in very major ways. I don't know. Like I feel like I like that they're different.
I will say the one thing that that Snap does that I would like to see in Hearthstone is give people some reason to concede instead of rage quitting. Because the retreat mechanic, I mean, yeah, you're wagering cubes, but the fact that you have a reason to just end the game and leave rather than just close the client and walk away, especially on mobile, where it's a lot easier to just like quit out of the app because you're tilted. That's something that I like. I do like that there's a reason for you to actually quit out of the game rather than just leaving, and making people wait for the timer to run out. It's I don't think you'd be able to bring it into Hearthstone, but I do appreciate that part of Snap.
Yeah, and to steal Lepton's answer in the chat, Snap probably needs a card crafting system of some sort.
Yeah.
Some collection agency. I have my theories as to why they don't, but they probably need some.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, listeners, for hanging out with us. Hey, Edelweiss, you're a listener now. Thank you for hanging out with us. Sorry about your cough. Let me bring this up here. And we have many folks to like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coincassette.com. You can find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show, patreon.com/coincassette. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coincassette.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coincassette.com. Right into our email at coincassette@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coincassette. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coincassette. If you like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coincassette.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doji K, Crash Cat, Beef Squatch, David P, Fade to Black, Walu, Jeremy T, Bottle Caps, Lucky, and Ponius. Thank you so much for the raid, Donkey. Thank you so much for the subs, Doji K, Mr. Bungalow, and Tito Santana. And I'm going to read Edel's coin concedes first. First of all, she coin concedes a touch to the Nathrism because she beat me with it the game right before the show. And second of all, she coin conceded to me for voicing her when she started coughing up a lung mid-show. You're welcome, Edel. And by the way, don't say coin concede, just grab you saying it from last week and just splice it in. You can type it in the Twitch chat, but don't unmute and say coin concede. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you. Steve, who you got?
So I'm first of all gonna coin concede to Cap because he and I are both doing a thing that neither of us can talk about, and it's nothing bad or super exciting, but something that neither of us can really talk about. So it's been good to be able to talk to somebody because I'm dying to talk about it. And so we've been having some good conversations about that. So I appreciate that. I also want to coin concede to DCU, Beef Squatch, Number Theory, Matt at Arms, Megasa, and Tito Santana, who all came in to donate money to Boston Children's Hospital during my stream Monday night. Again, I appreciate all the help that anyone can give. And even if you can't donate, I appreciate, spreading the word or whatever else you can do. But it's, it's pretty cool to, go into, come out of my stream on Monday night and say to Maureen, like, yeah, we just raised nearly $500 for the Children's Hospital. And that's pretty cool. And, it's going to make some kids' lives like suck a little less, which, I mean, it's never fun to be in a hospital as a kid, but maybe it'll make their, their stays a little bit happier while they're there. So.
And yeah, it's a noble cause. Thank you for doing the fundraiser, and thank you to everyone that donated. Coin concede. So snap people first. Gonna get all this out of the way. Rodstronic, Can't Stop Snapping podcasts, and the co-host that I was on it with, and just the Snap team. Marvel Snap is the #1 game on iOS and Google yesterday. So this is a launch success by every metric. Have really loved seeing my feed light up with people talking about the game that used to play Hearthstone or that still do play Hearthstone and have just been having a good time. Game does a lot of things right, I think, and it's been fun to be a part of it. The Can't Stop Snapping episode that I was just on came out yesterday. You can find that it's Can't Stop Snapping is the name of the podcast. It's can't_stop_snap on Twitter. I was on there with the host Blue Spruce and then Jeff Hoagland and Binks Plays. So it's a really fun panel. Mixed Clouds, hey, congrats on being a dad. Little one came, I believe, earlier today, so congrats, Mix. Coin concede to Kayla's Luna, who disappeared off Twitter for a little while, and then they let us know why. They had a pretty terrifying injury, and were in the hospital for a while. And Kayla's, I'm just really glad you're alive. So,
yeah,
thanks for doing that.
And they're streaming tonight too, so they're out of work for a little while, but at least they're feeling well enough to stream, which is, given what they went through, is amazing. So I'm glad they're still with us.
Yes. We've got Blizzlet. I was on that podcast last night. It was a good time. Go listen to it. And then Number Theory for just being flexible with coaching times as always. He's always so understanding. And so, just a good dude. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. So keep calm and drink your fire cider. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Show title, Dedelweiss.
Okay, I have stopped recording. Hopefully I left enough time between for her to splice in her coin concede.
She can move your thing.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's a thing you
that's
can
not
do
hard.
in editing. Oh god. I
It's,
press the stop recording and my brain turns to immediate mush. Holy crap. You can tell what I've been talking about at work today. There's a little Freudian slip for you. All right. I am exporting the thing. And is that done? Okay. Okay, my audio is on its way up.
All right.
And we apparently have crumble cookies waiting for me when I
Ooh,
yeah.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to that. I had to wait because they weren't cutting them up until after we started recording. So hopefully they're still there. the jackals haven't descended on them and left me crumbs, but you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna bring the stream down. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
All right, have a good one, everybody. Bye.
Bye.